following week when you get to Michigan, a lot of the same concepts, the motions, the guys going across the face, post and pre-snap is going to be the same thing you got from Cincinnati and the same thing you get from Houston Christian. And I can't say they planned this out. Rhule's a great planner, but this is a great game for as far as schematically, not the level of play that these players are going to be playing at, schematically to get you prepared to play for a team like Michigan following the performance you had the first week in Cincinnati. I mean, it's a perfect setup for them where you can really tap into different schemes and different ways of running them and carry the same stuff over to the next week, right? If that makes sense. So big opportunity for them for sure.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because Bryce Underwood, albeit a really, really good quarterback, he's young, and their play calling. My buddy's a Michigan guy, covers Michigan. Not a big fan of their play calling, but that is a matchup problem again because they run a lot of that zone blocking scheme that we struggle with. Yep. But Sorsby is going to run a lot more than Bryce Underwood will. Bryce Underwood can run, but he likes to be in the pocket a lot more. But that is a great setup. We had an athletic quarterback, with the Cincinnati team that we're able to come in and beat, and then we got this set up again to kind of maybe just get a little bit of a polish up for that Michigan game for sure. Yeah.
Can I say one worry about Underwood? I'm worried. Okay, after 3 games, we'll see how they play against Central Michigan. What I'm worried is, right, after 3 games going 4th game, they're like, okay, our passing game isn't what we wanted. Underwood, we need you to run. And I hate for that to start this week.
I 100% agree because he absolutely can.
Because he can. Run. He absolutely can. I think if they, I think Michigan is so a couple plays of design quarterback runs from really putting some pressure on guys and taking that pressure off him with his arm. And I think that's got to be their next step if things don't go the way they wanted versus Central Michigan. Because if you look at that New Mexico game, I mean, that was a battle for a little bit. It wasn't a clear cut blowout. And even running they had one or two big runs, but outside of that, they really didn't run the ball that efficiently against New Mexico. Definitely didn't do it efficiently against Oklahoma. They had a couple big runs there too, but I just hate for it to be us the week that they want to start using his legs more.
That's what
he can do it, and it's going to open up their game a lot more.
Yeah, 100%. That's what they did last year with Alex Orji. They just kind of gave up on all their quarterbacks and just started trying to run it with Alex Orji, but then that didn't work. They tried to go back, So yeah, it's because it's Michigan. I mean, they're going to have offensive linemen. They're at least like, let's try to run the ball.
Right.
Bryce Underwood's athletic enough, and he does have some touch on his passes. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't even think about that. The fact that they could just start picking it up in that game. So, but Brian, go ahead.
So, when you're playing these games, like in your career, right, you've had those games where you played the Akrons or the Houston Christians of the world where you're supposed to win big. Mm-hmm. What is it that you're looking for in those games from a coach's perspective? Obviously execution and whatnot and building depth. But I guess I've always wondered what the true purpose of these games where you're going and you're going to win by 50 plus points and kind of what you achieve from that.
Well,
if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Well, I think football probably don't achieve much financially. The other program is probably living. Yeah, I mean that's the big reason for these games. We all know that, but as far as what you can get out of it is, guys just you want to see them. Obviously, be probably a lot of base defense, a lot of just day one fall camp type of things, and you want to see your guys execute. That's the biggest thing. No costly penalties. Nothing is going to go into the next week that Michigan sees like, oh, we can take advantage of it. You know what I mean? So the biggest thing is just playing clean, coming out with no injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. Coming out clean with no injuries. So, we know what it's all for, but they still got to get some type of get something out of it,
Yeah, and as a player, correct me if you did notice the same thing, or if you have. But I feel like this team more than any in the past, the energy did not take a dip. No matter which level that we had on the field, first, second, third string, the intensity didn't seem to decrease. No matter how far up we got in the game, the complacency seemed to never really show up. And even that blocking that field goal before halftime, it's just like a lot of teams in that moment to be like, we're up 33-0, let's just go ahead and get in half, 33-3, whatever. they weren't going to give up those points. And
Right.
you know, what do you think has been the biggest shift? And I would imagine it's probably a lot of the
Be
culture,
careful.
and then I think it's a lot of what's gone on behind the scenes with winter mat drills and
Yep.
just putting these guys through these tough scenarios and just building them for these moments. And these become easy moments for them just because of those reps.
Yeah, man. I think it's a lot of stuff we don't get to see, and that's the thing you tell a lot of young athletes. You see Sundays, right? But you don't see, the Monday through Friday, what it
Mhm.
takes to get to a game day. And that's the biggest thing for a lot of guys is understand the process. Now, you can't just create a process when the season starts, right? I feel like in high school, right? We had the summer where we had the 2 month, and it's pretty much all football, right? We know no school. And I always give my speech when we get to, beginning of August. Yeah, school is a distraction, right?
Yeah.
And people take it however they want, but it's a distraction, right? If the goal is for us where we are right now is to win a state championship or for Nebraska to win a national championship, there has to be a has to be a standard. It has to be consistent throughout the year.
Yep.
And as we saw in the halftime speech Rule gave, I mean, if my standard's too high, then I'll leave. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's just been it. And I think it's kind of been
Yep.
approached with the other guys. But I think where that click is where you see, hey, be careful. Where that click where you see is where the players are saying, hey, if you don't want to hold to the standard, we'll kick you out. Right. We're
Yes.
not gonna yeah, that's where the change happens. And
Yep.
I think that's what you're kind of seeing on the field. You're seeing guys enjoying playing with each other, enjoying, representing Nebraska. And
Yeah.
once you get it player led, man, that's when, not the cliche team meeting,
Mm.
players only, and we got to figure out. Trust me, we did that a couple times under both, right? And actually
Yep.
under Riley too. You know what I mean? And what does it help or does it? I mean, do you got good players or not? Right?
Yep.
That's really the
Yeah.
end of the day.
At the end of the
So
day.
yeah, you got good players or not. So I think at the end of the day, the standard they created in the offseason, the Matt drills. I think, the guy that let's make no name, the strength coach, Coach Corey.
Oh, Corey Kimball.
Uh, yeah. I think he's got a. I don't know if you remember when Dobson was there under Bo, but he has a
Yep.
very much that type. I think Rule trusts him that much to where if Rule say, "Hey, I'm going to go vacation for a month," I think he'll let him handle and he'll be perfectly fine. Like I think he has a pulse on the guys, and obviously you see the work and transformation of their bodies and things like that. That
Absolutely. And
he's tapped into a mindset as well too, and I think the whole staff is under the same belief and same mindset. So it makes it easier for everybody to get better. You know what I mean, everybody to progress.
100%. I think what you mentioned with it being going back to you saying it's player led, it brings me back to kind of what I've talked about a lot this offseason and since 2023 when Matt Rhule came in one of his early pressers, he talked about it's going to be more of us, less of them in the beginning, but the goal is to make it more of them, less of us. And
Hmm.
that was part of breaking them into those 6 different teams and having those playing across the different fields. Like those players got those reps at leading the charge and coaching each other and getting and the natural leaders form themselves. And I think all of that's finally come to fruition. I think that's the beautiful part to see about this process and to see like, okay, like Matt Rhule, he came in here and he was like, when we lost the first couple of weeks, he's like, you didn't bring me in here to win. Now you brought me in
Right.
here for this,
Right.
and now we're seeing that and getting to the other side of that. I think we're starting to see that. And I think that's where the standard is high. I said after the week 1, I was a little disappointed, but that's because my baseline was higher, because coming into the season, I was like this year 3 and no disappointment in last year. I would have been ecstatic. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's the standard raised kind of like you were talking about. Brian, let's move over to the offensive side of the ball and talk about that a little bit as well.
So my big question is at this left tackle spot where we kind of saw things iron out last week, but you got 3 guys basically fighting for that left tackle spot. How do you go about, or how would you go about finding that bookend left tackle between Gunnar Tola, Elijah Pritchett, and Turner Corcoran?
Oh, I may have lost him for a second.
Me?
Yeah, it just cut out for just a second.
Sorry. I
No,
said
you're good.
you got kind of a round bag of kind of everything there. You got your older guy, super vet. You got the guys played a little bit, but kind of getting his feet a little bit wet. You got your transfer guys coming in. I think rules made it simple. If you're not living up to the standard 24/7, then that's on the field, off the field, in the weight room, doing everything you can to be the best version of yourself. Then you're just not going to play. And I think at this point, you need guys that you can trust. Obviously, skill is important, but the main thing is guys you can trust, especially if you're going to play on that backside of Dylan. So I think you got to keep going with what works. If you're going to leave it open for the rest of the year, which it seems like on the depth chart, they took the or off of it. So it looks like they're trying to solidify that spot. And I don't see Rhule. I think he wants to get a guy in there, get a staple guy in there, and keep it that way. But whatever's gonna help the team win, and gonna help the team develop the next guy, because we've seen injuries at the line or the offensive line spot really hurt Nebraska's offense. So you got to have those guys ready. But at the end of the day, you want a solid starter. You want to have someone you can go to sleep knowing that Dylan's backside can be protected.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What I guess with this year's offense versus last, and I broke the air raid down, and it's calling it an air raid might be even a misnomer at this point. It's just kind of a balanced offense with a lot of air raid principles in terms of the route concepts, but it also has a lot of the same language from other offenses as well.
Yep.
But I'd say, outside of, because, with the concept of just kind of spreading the field out, making the defense kind of cover grass. But I think the biggest thing that we've seen this year versus last year is just Dylan's calmness. Glenn Thomas says all the time, calm feet equal calm mind. His calmness in the pocket. And, what do you think has been the biggest key to that? Do you think it's the simplified play calling? Do you think it's the lack of options, with routes out there, way more routes than Satterfield had running, at every level, and they're attacking the levels, they're changing the attack point and trying to keep it, what do you think has been the biggest thing in his development and his growth this season?
I'll say I don't have any quote unquote inside or anything like that, but I'll say the biggest thing is from what I've gathered, the organization of the offense, the language, the structure, how we're setting up certain things is a lot smoother. And you got to understand, Hogan's been an offensive coordinator. He's been a head coach. He's been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
So he has a different setup, right? He has 20 plus years of trial and error, right? So I just think the organization of the offense is just a little bit cleaner for Dylan. I think that him and Holgerson, and even him and Thomas, I think they all just have a good cohesiveness. So and I think too is the respect level with Holgerson. I'll just be honest with you, he's no nonsense. Like I talked to Mosey quite a bit and kind of about stuff. He works under Holgerson, and he called it how it is. I think that's the other part too, is that he holds a similar standard of Rhule. He wants his guys to play the way he sees it in his head. Like there's no other way around it, right? He's just as demanding as Rhule. Shoot, he's just as loud as Rhule in the practice sometimes, getting on the guys, to pick up the tempo and make the right reads and make the right decisions and just play fast. So I think when you got a guy like that as a coordinator, just like you got it with John Butler on defense, takes a lot of pressure off of Rhule that we feel like he doesn't have to spend more time on one side of the offense with the offense or the defense. So I just think the organization of the offense is a lot better for Dylan, for the entire offense. And then everyone's you're advancing to the offense too, right? So everybody knows what to expect a little bit more. May have an understanding of what Holgerson likes to call in certain situations. And I think too, Dylan just having more experience, being able to say, hey, I like this, I don't like this, let's try this. And I think with more confidence, obviously his playing level increased. I think that he'll be able to have more say so in those type of decisions in the game plan. But the organization's a lot better. They're on the same page. I think there's an emphasis and there's a process of where they want to, a process for how they want to do things to get the end results they want.
For sure.